We continue now at the top of Daf Mem Vav Amud Aleph in Meseches Bava Basra. This is Bava Basra Daf 46a. On the previous summit, the Gemara was discussing the halacha in the Mishnah that an uman, a craftsman, is not able to make a chazaka because items are often deposited by him to fix those items, and so therefore the possession of the item alone is not enough to establish a chazaka. And the Gemara said that Rabba severely limited what the Mishnah meant, because Rabba says, first of all, if the uman receives the item with no witnesses, there are no witnesses that he received it, then he can actually always establish a chazaka, because there's always some other claim that he could make. He never got the item, etc. And so therefore, in that situation, he actually can establish a chazaka. And then the Gemara said that Rabba would even say in a situation where Adam saw that he was given the item, even over there, if we don't see the item currently in his possession, he is still able to establish a chazaka, because he can always say that he returned it. He has that migo that he can claim he returned it, because Rabba ended up saying that just because you were given something with Adam does not mean you need to return it with Adam. And so therefore, according to Rabba, the only time we say that an uman is not able to establish a chazaka, it would only be in a situation where it was given to him with Adam, and also right now we currently see that he has possession of the item, therefore he doesn't have any migos in that situation, and so in that situation, that's when we say that he's not able to establish a chazaka. And so the Gemara now is in the middle of bringing a proof from a brisa. The brisa is talking about a case where the uman and the person who gave the object to the uman are arguing over exactly what the wages of the uman will be, and the brisa said that the uman will win the case if he's currently in possession of the item, and the idea seems to be because he has some kind of migo. And the Gemara in the previous summit said the case has to be where there are no Adam when he was given the item, because if there were Adam at the time he was given the item, then the Adam can testify what the wages should be. And so the Gemara now says, Elalav, rather is it not the leka Adam, it must be that there were no witnesses at the time the uman was given the item. And the Gemara continues, Vikatani, and it says in the brisa uman mehemen, that the uman is believed in terms of his wages. Migo di boy amar le lakucha hi biyadi mehemen namia agre, and it seems to be the reason is he has a migo, since he could have said that I bought the item and he would be believed, so he's also believed in terms of the wages. And the understanding of the Gemara right now is that we do see the item right now in the possession of the uman, and we're saying he's believed. Why is he believed? Why is he able to make a chazaka? He's able to make a chazaka because it was given over to him without any witnesses, and so therefore again he has a migo. He can always say he purchased the item and he would be believed, and that seems to be in accordance with what Rabba said. And the Rashbam explains, Elalav deleka Edem Ede Mesira, it must be there are no Ede Mesira. V'afa gavdera, even though we see that he has possession of the item right now, still he would be believed to say that he purchased the item, meaning he's believed he has a chazaka in terms of the item. And again, that goes like Rabba. V'katani uman mehemen, it says the uman is believed. The katani al balabayas lahavi raya karab, it says if the uman still has the item in his possession, the balabayas is the one that needs to bring evidence, like Rabba said, utiyuvta di Abaya, that's a refutation of Abaya. Diyamar lo mehemen hechadura, Abaya says that if we see the item in his possession, he is not going to be believed. He cannot make a chazaka. And so again, this seems to be a proof to Rabba and a refutation of Abaya. And the Gemara continues, lo no liolam deleko edim. It could be again, there were no witnesses at the time the item was given to the uman. However, v'hu de lo ra, however, it could be a situation where the item was not seen in the possession of the uman. We don't know for certain that he has the item, and so therefore, since it's not seen, he can always deny ever having gotten the item, and that's why he has a migo. That would be in accordance with Abaya. Even Abaya agrees that an uman is able to make a chazaka in a situation of lo ra'ah, and so therefore this brisa is not necessarily a support for Rabba. And the Gemara continues, Mesev Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak asks the following question. This is from our Mishnah. The Mishnah said, Uman ein lo chazaka. It said that an Uman is not able to establish a chazaka. So Uman hu de ein lo chazaka, we can draw the following inference. An Uman is not able to establish a chazaka. Ha'acher yesh lo chazaka. But another person, if he was not an Uman in a similar situation, he would be able to establish a chazaka. So hechidami, so what exactly is the case of the Mishnah? Ideika edim. Now, if there are witnesses that it was given over to the Uman in his capacity as a craftsman, so then you can have an analogous case. Let's say you have a situation where it's given over to a person as a pikadon and there are witnesses to that. So acher amay yesh lo chazaka. So if you gave to another person with witnesses that it was given as a pikadon, why would he have a chazaka? He also would not be able to establish a chazaka. Clearly, we're trying to have some distinction between an uman and another person. If you're talking about with Adam, there really would not be a distinction. So elalav, rather, is it not the leka Adam, that there are no witnesses who saw it given over? The katani uman ein lo chazaka, and it's saying saying that an uman does not have a chazaka in a situation where there were no witnesses. That goes against what Rabba said. Rabba said in a situation of no Eidei Mesira, we certainly would say that an uman could establish a chazaka to yufta de Rabba, to yufta. Should that be a refutation of Rabba? And the Gemara says, indeed, that is a refutation of Rabba. And the Rashbam explains, ha'acher inish bi'alma de lavum, and if you have some other person who's not a craftsman, and the Gemara said, hechi dami de bu'uman ein lo chazaka, v'acher yesh lo chazaka. What would be a scenario where a craftsman does not make a chazaka and another person does? If there are witnesses that the balabayis gave it over to the craftsman in front of them, and now we see that the talis is right now in his hand, so if that's the case, how could we infer that another person would make a chazak in such a case? If there are witnesses that it came to him as a deposit, when right now we see it in his possession, where he doesn't have the claim that I returned it to you, certainly even a regular person would not be believed to say that he bought it. What would be the difference of a sharecropper or a caretaker? They can't just claim that they bought the item. Now maybe you're going to try to suggest that here we're talking in the Mishnah where there were witnesses that it was given over to the Uman, but right now we don't see it in his possession. And then you'll say that's why this other person is believed, because right now we don't see it in his possession. But in that situation, if it's a situation again where we don't see it in his possession, the human also would be believed according to everyone. Because we said earlier, if someone deposits something by his friend with witnesses, he does not need to return it with witnesses, and so he can always claim that he returned it. Since he has a migo that he could say, I returned it to you, if he says that I bought it, he would be believed as well. And so therefore, again, the only scenario we really have over here is a situation where there were no Eidei Mesira. If you have a situation where there were Eidei Mesira, and again, we're talking about a situation where we see the item in the possession of the individual. So again, if you see the item in the possession of the individual, he doesn't have a chazaka, and another individual also in a similar scenario would not have a chazaka. So elalav deleka Eidim, rather it must be that there are no witnesses, b'shas Mesira, meaning at the time it was given over, v'hilkach afagav de roin anu biyado, and therefore even though we do see that he has possession of the item right now, the acher yesh lo chazaka, but still a different individual would have a chazaka. The kaven de lav uman, because since he's not a craftsman, yacholomar lakoachu biyadi, he can say that I bought it. Kedin kala konin metalzlin mechavrein, like anyone who buys something from their friends, she'ein srichin eidim, the person doesn't need witnesses. Elamikeven shum muchzak bo yacholomar shaliv shalakachtem imcha, since he has possession, he can say it's mine that I bought it from you. The katani, but it says still uman ein lo chazaka, that an uman does not have a chazaka. In this situation where there are no witnesses, he's not able still to make that chazaka. V'ikara, and again we see it in his possession. Ke Abaya, that seems to be like Abaya, that he does not have a chazaka, because again Rabba said he can always establish a chazaka if there were no Eidei Mesira. To yufta de Rabba, and that's why the Gemara said it's a refutation of Rabba. D'yamar lo'ola mehemin uman adi ikatarti, because again he says the uman is always believed unless you have both the fact that there were Eidei Mesira and that we see it in his possession. In this case, if there are no Eidei Mesira, again Rabba would say that the uman is believed, and that does not seem to be the case. It seems that the Mishnah is saying he is not believed in such a situation because of the fact that he is an uman. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, this is from the Tosefta, Nischalfulo Kalim Bekalim. Let's say there is a mix-up in terms of the clothing, for example. Let's say the launderer gives back the wrong clothing to the customer. Bebesa Uman, it gets mixed up in the house of the craftsman. And again, it could apply by any type of kli, any type of craftsman. Hareze Yishtamish Bahen, the person who received back the wrong item is allowed to use those items until the real owner of the item comes and takes what is his. Essentially, the Bryce of the Tosefta seems to be saying that you can assume just like you're using this person's item, he's using your item, they got mixed up, and there's no problem to use the item. However, the Bryce continues, Bebeis ha'avel or Bebeis ha'mishta. Let's say something gets mixed up. People are at a house of mourning, or they're at a feast, a celebration, and some of the items or the clothing get mixed up. Hareze lo yishtamish, but he's not allowed to use them. Ad sheyavo halo v'yito las shelo. He has to wait. He has to hold the item until the real owner comes and takes what is his. And the Gemara immediately asks, Ma'ishna Reishu, Ma'ishna Seifa. Well, what's the difference between the first case of the Tosefta and the second case? In both cases, you're talking about a situation where the kalim got mixed up. Why is it that in the first situation you're allowed to use them, and in the second situation you're not? And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav, Rav says, Hava Yosifna Kami de Chabibi, I was sitting in front of Chabibi, my uncle, that refers to Rabbi Chia, V'yomar li, and he said to me, V'chi ein adam asoi lomar le'uman, isn't it possible that a person can say to a craftsman, Machor li talisi, you should sell for me my talis, and essentially, since that is a possibility, it is possible that the uman actually had possession of the talis that he's now giving, this wrong talis that he's giving, let's say, to Ruvain. Really, the uman might have possession. It could be that Shimon told the uman, I want you to sell that for me and give me the money. And so it could be that that's what happened, that there was permission to give it over. And since you have that possibility, that seems to be what Rav is saying, since you have that possibility, that's why we say he's allowed to use the item in the meantime. And the Rashbam explains, Amar Rav Chia says, the Rashbam here seems to have a slightly different girsa than we had in terms of it saying Amar Rav Chia instead of Rav saying that I was in front of my uncle, etc. But in any case, Rav Chia explains as follows, Tam de Reisha, Bolafarish, Rav Chia is coming to explain the reason of the beginning of the Tosefta. Why is it different than the end of the Tosefta? And he explains, isn't it possible that a person gave it to the Uman to sell? And therefore, because of this possibility, we could say that the Uman, he was selling a particular talis that he was fixing, that he was working on, and that was with the instruction of the person who gave him the talis. It could be the Balabayas told him to sell it. And then the Uman actually made a mistake. He accidentally sold the talis of this person of Ruvain, meaning Ruvain who received the wrong item. His talis accidentally got sold. V'nasan lo talis zumidas, and it could be he gave him this talis purposely as a substitute in the interim, and the Uman was allowed to do that. He was the owner of this talis until he finally gets his back. V'kevan to midaito nasan lo, since he gave it to him knowingly, mutar lehistamish ba masha'en came bebeisa avel or bebeisa mishta. So therefore, the person in the interim is allowed to use it. That's not true in a situation where he comes from beisa avel or a beisa mishta. And so that's essentially Reb Chia's understanding why it is in the Reisha, since there is this possibility that you're getting it from the rightful owner who might be the Uman, therefore you're allowed to use it in the interim. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Chia Bereder Rav Nachman, Rav Chia the son of Rav Nachman said, Lo shanu elahu, this is only true that Ruvain is allowed to use this talis in the interim if he was given the talis by the Uman himself. Aval ishtu uvan of lo, but let's say his wife, meaning the wife of the Uman, or the children of the Uman, they gave him the wrong talis, then he cannot use it in the interim, then it's assumed that it is a mistake. And even if the Uman himself gives the talis, it's also only true, talis dam, if he told him, I'm giving you a talis, then you could say that really this was a talis the Uman had permission to sell, and therefore again he can use it in the interim. But if the way the Uman phrases it is take your talis, so then clearly he mistakenly gave him the wrong one, so then then you can't use it in the interim because hai lav talis didehu, this is not his talis, and so he cannot use it. And the Gemara continues, Amarle Abaye l'Rava, Abaye said to Rava, Ta'achvi loch ramai de pumbedisa mayavdi, come and let me show you what a ramai in pumbedisa, what a cheater in pumbedisa would do. They would do as follows. Amarle havli sar beloy, let's say a person would say to a launderer, give me my garment, and he would say back, this is a person who is a ramai, the launderer is a ramai, he says back, Lo hayu devar me'olam, it never happened, you never gave it to me. And so then the person says, Isli sahadi techaziyu agabach. What do you mean? I have witnesses. They see that you have the item. You have my item with you. Amar le, he says back to him, Ahu acharina have. That's a different item. It's one that looks like yours. It's not exactly yours. Afkinu v'nechzinu. So they say, okay, so afkinu v'nechzinu. Let's take it out and let's look at it. Let's have a chance for the Adam to really look at this and really determine whether it's mine or not. Amar le. So then the launderer would say back, Ivra lo mafikna le. No, I'm not going to take it out for you because it's not yours. I have no right to take out somebody else's garment for you to inspect. Amar Rav, and Rava says, Shaper Kamerle, the truth is the launderer is saying what is correct. He doesn't really have to take out this item. There's nothing that can force him to take out this item that it should be inspected. And the Rashbam explains, the Chazyu Agabach, again, it was seen by you, Beged Echad Ro, the witnesses saw a certain garment, Vushali, and it's mine. Umiyu, but says the Rashbam, nevertheless, Ha'edem ein makirin bo yafa. The Edom, they're not certain, Imzehu, that this is actually his garment. If they were certain, so then that would be real evidence. But in this case, they're saying, we see something, it seems to be your garment. Afkine v'nechzinu, okay, so let's take it out and look at it. Hotzeo so sheyiru Edom, let's take it it out so the witnesses can see. Sha'atomer achrinu, you're saying it's somebody else's. Let's see if what you're saying is true. That way you won't be suspected. And he answers back, Ivra, lo mafikna le be'emes, in truth, lo otzienu b'shvil tano secha shel hevel. I'm not going to take it out just because of your nothing claims. Eroloch maman acherim, therefore I should show you somebody else's stuff. V'zeu haramos, and this is really Ramos, to lo l'shem shamayim miskavin, because he's not doing this l'shem shamayim to protect this other person's garment. Ela ligno vestalis chaver miskavin, his whole intention is really to steal. That's why he's a Ramai, he's really a cheater. And then Rava says, Shaper kamer le'uman, really, the Uman is saying properly, Kacheshev Rava li Abaya, this is what Rava is telling Abaya, Sha'afal pisha ramoim hein, even though these people really are cheaters, Hadin imam, what they're saying is actually true. Tiafilu ksherim shabi Yisrael, Yechol liton kain, even if somebody was kosher, even if somebody was upright, he'd be able to make such a claim not to take out the item, etc. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Mem Vav Amid Beis.